This happened to me almost 2 years ago. I was driving home with my friend after doing some homework at a coffee shop. We took a road for about 10 miles before turning left on a more quiet road. When we did, we noticed the truck did the same. We didn't really make anything of this, but once we turned right at the next intersection, the truck did as well, and that caught our attention. Maybe I'm just a paranoid person, but whenever I drive at night, I always pay attention to the cars behind me and if they turn when I do. After following the road for a short distance, it came to a fairly busy road that we had to cross. When we did, the truck crossed it as well. The next turn was for my friend's street where his house was. It was my car, but my friend was driving it. Once we turned, we saw that the truck turned as well. Both of us got really excited and kind of creeped out as well, saying that the truck was following us. We thought maybe it was his neighbour, so he started to pull over in front of his house. But the truck pulled over as well. That confirmed 100% to us that we were being followed. For a second, I wanted to go out and confront whoever was in the truck, but my friend talked me out of it. We didn't know why they would follow us. Nothing was wrong with the car, and we hadn't cut anyone off. It had been a pretty normal drive. My friend pulled out of his street, and so did the truck. He said he knew a route that would confuse the truck, and started driving in a large residential neighbourhood that was nearby. We took lefts and rights, and after about 10 minutes, we were finally able to lose the truck. We drove around a couple more minutes, and then headed back to his house. When we got to his house, I dropped him off and started to drive home. When I did, I noticed a truck with the lights off peel out and start driving behind me. The truck was back. I started to drive home and was planning to take a really long and confusing way when I suddenly remembered what you're supposed to do when you get followed, which is drive to a police station. I started driving to the police station, and when I arrived, the truck did not follow me in. So after a couple of minutes, I left and drove home. I took a really long way home just to be safe and looked over my shoulders every 2 seconds. I was able to make it home safely. I don't even know why we were being followed in the first place. I just hope I never see that truck again. I was driving home from work one day last year. I worked in the city and lived about 20 miles away, so I'd often hit rush hour on my way home. On this particular day, it was pretty bad. I was merging onto the freeway, and when I did, I accidentally cut somebody off. I didn't mean to cut them off, but it was so busy I made a split-second decision and simply misjudged my space. I felt bad, but it happens, and within a minute, I had forgotten all about it. I remained on the freeway for a good 20 minutes and noticed that the car behind me was following extremely close. It didn't concern me. I realized he must be mad about me cutting him off and figured I deserved it. Nothing bothered me until I exited off the freeway at my exit, and the car did as well. It was a kind of old, beat-up looking car. The driver appeared to be a man, but other than that, I couldn't make out much detail. He remained extremely close to my car. I guess there was a slim chance he wasn't following me, so I took the next turn, but he did as well. I didn't want this man following me all the way home, so I pulled into a gas station to see what would happen. He followed me in. I guess I thought he wouldn't do anything if there were other people around, so I parked at a parking space. He drove his car right behind mine to block me in. Now I felt dumb. This was not one of my brightest ideas. The man got out of his car. He looked to be in his 30s and had blonde hair. He walked at a fast pace towards my car. I locked my doors. He came up to my window and knocked on it. He knocked so hard I thought the window might break. He started yelling and cursing at me. There were a few people at the gas station, and they started to look over at what was going on. I thought about calling the police, but after some people from the gas station started to approach us, the man got back in his car and drove off. I was relieved to see him drive away, and I pulled out a couple of minutes later and went home. I couldn't stop looking behind me on the drive back, but he didn't follow me anymore. Some drivers have terrible road rage, and I've learned to drive much safer since then. I was driving back from Kentucky to Illinois once. I would frequently make long drives for work, and I would drive at all hours of the night. On this day, I was somewhere in northern Kentucky, about 3 hours into my drive, which would be an all-nighter. It was about 1:00 a.m., and I had to take a detour due to construction on a major road. I was annoyed because this would delay me, but I kept driving. It took me on a little highway and then to a small town. The road was very quiet, and as I passed through the little town, I noticed a car on the side of the road. I figured it was a cop, so I slowed down a little bit. I wasn't speeding, but that's just a reaction I tend to have. As I got closer, I saw that it was not a cop car, but just a regular-looking car. When I passed by, the car pulled out and began to follow me. I didn't know why the car would follow me, but I just kept driving as best I could. After about 10 minutes of driving, the car began to speed up and get closer to me. I started to get annoyed. He pulled out behind me and was now tailing me. I pulled over to the side of the road to let it pass by, but instead, the car pulled over as well. I was kind of mad, so I thought I would ask the driver what his deal was. I'm 6'3" and weigh about 210 pounds, so I figured I could take him, whoever he was. I stopped my car and got out. I stood next to my car, facing the car behind me. The door started to open, and then it shut. The car then took off and started driving straight for me. I couldn't believe my eyes. I quickly jumped on the hood of my own car. I got out of the way with about 1 second to spare as his car whizzed by me. It also came about a foot from scraping my car. I immediately got back in my car, made a U-turn, and started driving the opposite direction. The car kept going the other way down the road. After a minute or so, I pulled over and took out my phone to call the police, but I had no signal. I ended up driving back to the freeway I had been on earlier, where I had service, and was able to report the incident. I also found another route to take home. It took me an extra hour, but I was able to make it home safe. That was one of the scariest moments of my life. In the summer of 2018, I was taking a road trip with 2 of my friends to Cleveland. We were planning to arrive in Cleveland at about 11 p.m. Everything was going smoothly, and at around 10 p.m. we were about an hour away. My friend Sean said he really needed to use the bathroom, and my friend John, who was driving, really didn't want to stop. After arguing back and forth for several minutes, John finally pulled off the freeway and into a rest stop. The rest stop was quiet, but there were about 2 or 3 cars spread out over the parking lot. Sean got out and went to the bathroom. Me and John stayed in the car to wait. After about a minute, we saw Sean running from the bathrooms and toward us. He got in the back of the car and yelled at John to drive. Sean loves to mess with people, so we figured he was pulling a joke on us. John told him to shut up and laughed a little. "No, I'm serious," said Sean. He pointed outside the car. We then saw a man walking toward us. Without saying a word, John started the car and drove off. We saw that man sprinting as we pulled away. I didn't get a good look at the man, as it was night time, but I saw him run to a car and get in as we left the parking lot. John started driving down the road, asking who it was. Sean just said to drive faster as he was following us. The man's car was an old Saturn that was red and kind of beat up looking. We could barely see it, but it started to get closer in our rear view mirror. John started to drive faster, and the car did as well. There wasn't too much traffic on the road, but John started to pass cars left and right. All the while the red car remained about 10 car lengths behind us. John then began driving so fast that we went over 100 miles per hour. I remember looking at the dash and seeing 112. We didn't care if we got pulled over because we were being chased by someone. Finally, the car got further away. Jonathan slowed down really suddenly and took an exit. I thought the car was going to flip the way he pulled off the freeway. The tires skidded, and he went under a bridge and then made a U-turn before going back on the freeway in the opposite direction. I have to admit, I was pretty impressed with the move. The car lost us, and then we were able to get back on the freeway going the other direction and arrived at our hotel only about 30 minutes late. We finally asked John to tell us why the man was chasing him. He said when he got in the bathroom, he saw a man who was smoking and asked Sean if he had any drugs. Sean responded with, "No, I'm not an idiot." The man then got angry and cursed at Sean, and when Sean walked away, he saw the man start to walk after him, which is when he started running. I feel lucky to be alright after that crazy incident. The rest of our time in Cleveland was great, and that was one of the most memorable road trips I've been on so far.